Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, we're going to be looking at something that might hit a little close to home for some of you. We're going to be talking about what happens when you know someone invades your space. You know that place where you should feel the safest, at home.
Yeah, it's interesting you use the word sanctuary there, because that's kind of what we're talking about. It's not even just theft necessarily, but the fact that someone's come into your space, you know?
Right. It's like that barrier between you and the outside world has been broken.
Exactly.
So to really dig into this, we've got three stories that we're going to go over today that go way beyond just someone breaking in and stealing a TV.
Right.
We're talking the possibility of someone lurking around in someone's home. We're talking about a group of robbers who really just don't seem to care who sees them. And one story where a college student very narrowly avoids becoming a victim of something awful.
Yeah, and each of these, I think, will give us a little bit of a different perspective on home intrusion, what causes it, and how it can affect people.
So let's just jump right into that first one. This homeowner, he comes back from vacation.
Already a recipe for a bad time, even before anything else happens.
You're coming back, you're relaxed, your guard's down,
Right.
gets home, nothing seems amiss at first.
Left the porch light on, did all the things you're supposed to do.
Exactly, all of the things you're supposed to do to make it look like someone's home. But then he sees it, back door's unlocked.
Uh-oh.
Could have sworn he locked it, but there it is.
Yeah.
Now at this point, most people would probably just be like, oh, I forgot. Right.
Sure. I mean, we've all done that, I'm sure. But later that night, things take a bit of a turn.
This is where it starts to get creepy for me. He hears someone in the house. Not just a noise, but footsteps.
Okay.
And then catches a glimpse of a figure darting down the hallway and then out that same back door.
Okay, so now this is interesting because most burglars, their MO is get in and get out.
Right.
Don't stick around, you know.
You don't want to run into anybody.
Don't want to run into anybody.
Yeah.
Grab the stuff that you came for that's easy to grab and get out. So there's something else going on here, I think.
This wasn't your average smash and grab.
No. And what's interesting, too, is that the police found evidence of forced entry on the back door. Someone had broken in, but then stuck around even though this guy was supposed to come back.
And was watching him.
And may have been watching him from inside the house.
Okay, that's beyond creepy.
Mhm.
Are we saying this is like a stalking situation? Because now I'm thinking all those Home Alone scenarios in the movies.
Well, it's a possibility. And it's actually way more common than people think. You might be surprised how often what seems like a random act is actually something more. You know, so this idea that we have to pay attention to those things that make our spidey senses go off, I think is really important.
Like our instincts are there for a reason.
For a reason.
Well, imagine if he had encountered this person. Now we're talking about a whole other level of trauma
Absolutely.
and how that would affect you.
Well, think about it. You don't feel safe in your own home anymore. That's a feeling that's hard to shake.
Right?
That loss of control.
Yeah. Okay, everybody listening, just take a second. Picture yourself in that guy's shoes. It's pretty freaky.
It is. And it highlights the importance of not just physical security, but mental and emotional preparedness for these situations.
And that's something that I think we're going to unpack a little bit more with this next story.
Yeah.
This one takes place in a place I think a lot of us find ourselves, maybe late at night sometimes.
Sure.
The gas station. I don't know about you, but those late night gas station runs, I always get a weird vibe.
Yeah.
You're alone, it's late, you're not really paying attention.
Especially for the people who work there, right?
Yeah.
It's like they're sitting ducks a lot of the time.
And that's the setting for this next story we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
This gas station worker, he's about to close up, and a group of guys walk in. But they're not even trying to hide it.
Right. And that's what makes this one so creepy to me, you know?
Yeah.
This boldness. Like, they just don't care. And that says something about the psychology of these guys, too, you know?
Like they've done it before, probably.
It wouldn't surprise me, right?
Yeah.
Because they're getting away with it. They don't think they're going to get caught. And, you know, there's a certain mentality, I think, that goes along with that.
The teller even says something about how the leader of the group was just so calm.
Yeah, like he was just going about his business.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's an interesting point because what we know about group dynamics is that the leader kind of sets the tone, right?
Mhm.
So if the leader's calm, the rest of the group's going to be calm.
Oh, he's got this. I don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. He's got this. I don't have to worry about it.
So how do you, I say that's a question. For anybody who's listening, if you're in that situation, you're the teller, and you're thinking, I need to protect myself, but I also don't want these guys to go down the street and do something worse to someone else. How do you...
That's the dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you just don't know. Are these the kind of guys that if you just give them what they want, they're going to be on their way? Or is this going to escalate? And again, you don't know if you escalate. Is that going to make it worse?
And it's a split-second decision, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't have a lot of time to think about this.
Oh, man. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one.
So this is why I think it's so important to think about these things beforehand.
Yeah.
Because you don't have time to think about it in the moment.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean? So if you've at least thought about, okay, what would I do in this situation? Even if it's just in your head,
Yeah.
Play out some scenarios. That might help you.
That's good advice. Okay, so listeners, what would you do? What would you do?
Right. What would you do? Because this is the kind of thing we never think about, but it could happen.
Okay, let's move on to our last story. This one hits close to home for me because it's about a college student just trying to, get through school, late night studying.
And it just shows you how quickly something that seems normal can turn really bad.
It starts with this student. He's hearing these weird noises coming from his downstairs neighbor.
Yeah.
Some muffled bangs and what sounds like a man's voice kind of yelling or something.
Yeah.
Now, this is the part where most of us are probably like, whatever, I just put my headphones on.
It's probably nothing.
Especially if you're in a dorm or something where it's like there's always something going on.
Exactly. Walls are paper thin. You hear everything.
So you kind of just tune it out.
Right.
But then it escalates and the guy starts banging on the student's door trying to get in.
See, and this is where it's so important to pay attention to those little details because at first it's just noise. Now he's banging on the door. Things are escalating.
Something's wrong. Yeah.
This is a pattern.
Yeah.
This isn't random anymore.
And thankfully, the student does the right thing, calls the police right away.
Thank goodness.
And they get there just in time.
Wow.
And this is where it gets really real. Police find the downstairs neighbor, a young woman, severely injured. She later died from her injuries.
It's awful. And it just reminds you that these situations are more than just somebody breaking in and stealing your stuff. It can be really serious.
It's really sad. You hear about this stuff, but when you actually hear the details of a story like that.
Yeah, and it just reminds you that this is real. This is happening to real people, and it can happen anywhere.
So where do we even go from here? It's not as simple as just locking your doors, is it?
No, definitely not. I mean, it's more about, like you said, that mindset shift, right? Being aware, trusting your gut, and just being prepared.
So what are some practical things, because people listening are probably thinking, okay, I want to feel safe. I want to feel prepared. What can I actually do?
Well, one thing you can do is actually get to know your neighbors because, a lot of times we're just kind of isolated even in our own neighborhoods.
Right. Everyone's just in their own little world.
Exactly. And if you actually know your neighbors, you can look out for each other. I mean, those neighborhood watch programs, they do work.
Yeah, there's strength in numbers.
Exactly. And it's not even just about preventing crime, but it's also about having that support system,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about something like, self-defense? Would you recommend that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone should know how to defend themselves to some degree, right? Because again, it's about feeling empowered, not being afraid. It's not about becoming like some kind of vigilante, but it's just knowing that you have options.
Right. You have a choice.
You have a choice. Exactly. And, again, it goes back to that mindset of not dwelling on the bad stuff, not being afraid, but just being prepared, knowing what to do, being aware, trusting your gut.
Love that. Well, everyone listening, I hope that this has given you some things to think about, maybe to even talk to your family about.
Right.
It's not about living in fear, but it's about being informed, being prepared, and being connected to your community.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive on home intrusions. And until next time, stay safe, everyone.